So I'm start the recording, and today, as usual, we will make a weekly presentation of all the achievement and all the progress done during this week on MSI track. And first of all, let me say thank you to all of you who made who was contributed to MSI release and to Magento 2.3.0 release. And you made that happen, and because the community contribution made a terrific part of all the release, and thanks to all your contribution, we made it happen. And now Magento general availability release along with general availability release of MSI is ready and available to everybody who wants to install and deploy Magento websites on the new version of platform. So thank you to all of you. It was a big milestone for us, and we all together made it happen. So this is really terrific. This is amazing, and we could not do that without you. And today we will make today we will make you a presentation. So as we mentioned in Twitter, that the next day after the release of 2.3.0, we will start to work hard on the next release, on the 2.3.1, and this is especially true for MSI, because in MSI, actually it's not just for MSI, but this is true for all the core bundle extension. So we are not going to couple our release line to the release line of Magento. So we can and we would make MSI releases earlier than the releases of Magento. So I believe the new feature of multi-source inventory will be brought to the market much earlier, and one of that feature gonna be presented today. So actually, the main presenter for today is Riccardo Tempesta, who will make a presentation little bit later today, and he will make the presentation of the brand new feature, which we already started to test and which we want to accept and bring to the market as soon as possible. So this is already part of the next milestone, of the milestone 3, which we already started to work on MSI track. But before Riccardo will steal the stage and make the presentation, we will briefly tell you about the current status of regression, because we are still making regression to prevent and avoid any possibility some critical bugs found in production. And Slava will keep you updated on this testing. So Slava, feel free to share your screen and describe what the status of the regression and what the status of quality assurance of MSI we currently have.
Hello everyone. Let me share my screen. So I will remind you that mainly we're doing this regression on US Magento Cloud. And these instances, they include all latest version of Magento code, MSI code. You may see it's version 2.3.0. And we almost finished our first big regression cycle. It's all of them are here on heap test. Its biggest cycle have include 405 test scenario. It's the biggest cycle because after our previous cycles we found some issues and covered it with a new test scenario. So we have just 29 tests left to finish this cycle, and out of 505 scenario, we have 443 test scenario passed well, to 12 are failed, and 20 are skipped because of they actually describing behavior of mainly they describing behavior of bundle product on test or custom source what is not implemented yet. And we almost, I think we found just one new issue during this thing, but I'm even not sure if what valid. So far everything goes well, I would say. And I think this is all from my short update. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Slava. Can we hear Tom's update on automated testing coverage and overall coverage status before we proceed to the rest of the updates?
Sure.
So that we can start demoing right after.
Great. Okay, I'm happy to jump in there. Hi, everyone. So Slava has run through the current state of regression. I'm just of the manual testing, and I'd just like to share with you. Hopefully, you can see my screen here. The current status of automated coverage, where our gaps are, and this is our first report in this style. And I'll be running through. This will be running for every demo, and we'll be including more information as we go forward. But for now, Slava's talked about the current cycle of manual regression that's running, which looks great. We're just covering here manual regression from the last fully completed run. As he said, there's 29 still to run, so we're looking at the last fully completed run to sort of give a baseline so we can compare against the Slava's run when it's completed. Looks like we have a majority of passes, those failed and skips. This is from October 1st, so have been completed up to the 2.3 release date. Within component breakdown, this is where we're looking at where we're finding the majority of our tests, obviously within catalog and sales. So that's just how manual looks for now, but on the automated side, where there's coverage and gaps, we currently have 142 automated tests and 367 manual tests. Now, we're obviously would love 100% automated coverage as well, but where we're focusing our efforts right now is based on severity initially. So if we look at this here, our automated coverage by severity, in terms of gaps, we currently have this S0 figure, this blue part, is only 37% of the S0 cases have been fully automated. So that's where we want to focus our effort going forward. This report will then, from next demo time, will identify the component gaps. So as well as the severity, where exactly we have gaps, both in MSI itself and in the HIP test coverage, what S0s in HIP tests, whether that be catalog or sales, that we want to push forward for automation in going forward. And also, are there opportunities for automation that aren't currently covered by manual scenarios? So we want to expand that scope of automation as well, so that we have, as well as Slava's manual regression, an automated test case that runs frequently as well to catch whatever we can and be able to run per build and within our PRs as well. So that's a brief look at it for now. We'll have further information as this report is built week by week, but hopefully that gives you a good idea of where we're focusing our efforts. And that's all from me right now. Thank you, Igor.
Thanks, Tom. I'll follow up with you on a few of those numbers later.
Sure.
And as Tom mentioned, we will be adding more and more metrics here to enrich our reporting. Right now, we're battling a few limitations of HIP test and the way that our automated testing has been put together. We're trying to streamline all of that, and Tom's in charge of that. So thank you, Tom. now we can proceed to the demo, and yeah, that's it. So who goes first?
Riccardo?
Ricardo, please. The floor is yours.
Okay, I was speaking, but with mute, so it was almost useless. So as Igor mentioned before, I'm going to show you something I've been working on in the last weeks, and is the source selection algorithm based on distance selection. So I'm going to share my screen. That should be my desktop number, whatever. Yeah, should be this one. So you should see the Magento backend in the other page. So actually what you will see from the backend is not so impressive, because as you may imagine, all the work is made under the hood. So basically what we have here is that when you ship, as you probably know, you can choose different, well, actually, as far as now, you have just one source selection algorithm that is priority based. What I did is to add a new one that is distance priority. So basically, we will select our source depending on the distance. So if you have a near source, it will be before another source that may require more distance or more time to travel, actually. And if you see now, for example, this shipment is for one order that I made in Italy, and custom source 1 is in Ukraine, and custom source 2 is in Italy. So this is priority-based algorithm. If I switch to distance priority, of course, I expect custom source 2, that is the one in Italy, to be the first one, and custom source 1 that is placed in Ukraine to switch after custom source 2. So let's see if it works. I hope so. Yeah, it works. So basically, custom source 2, that is the nearest, is before. And from the configuration perspective, of course, this is the seen from the merchant perspective, and it's very easy to use. So you don't need to do anything magic, anything strange. It is not rocket science at the end. From the configuration perspective, you can change some parameter. So what I did is not only to provide one single distance provider, but to allow the possibility to use more than one. So for example, now I'm using Google Map, but maybe tomorrow someone can introduce even other systems. As far as now, we have Google Map and one offline calculation. I will show you what is later. And you can even configure your Google distance provider by, of course, adding a Google API key that, of course, is required to use this kind of services. And you can change the computation mode. So, for example, you can say by driving, walking, or bicycling. Yeah, I know it's very extreme, but Google Map provide even walking and bicycling. And maybe, depending on your business, you may be even interested in bicycling. I don't know about walking, but... And you can select between distance and time to destination, for example. So you know that Google can tell you what is time to travel from one point to another one, and I think it can be more effective for some kind of business. And this is what you see from the backend perspective. As I told you before, I created 2 different distance providers. One is Google Map, and another one is one offline calculation. So if you don't want to use Google Map, you can use this one that is embedded. And basically, it's a database you download in your Magento database, and you can do using command line. I don't know if you can see my console. I don't think if I shared you just my window or my screen. Can you tell me if you can see my terminal? Okay, just give me a minute. Oh, wait. I will share my full screen if I can. I don't know how. Okay, anyway. So now you should see my terminal.
Yep.
Okay, so what you can do is I should have in my history. Yeah, you can run one command like this and download the countries you want to work offline with. So for example, I want to download Italy, US, France, and Ukraine. It downloads and you have it in your database, so you can compute all the distance offline across these countries. And of course, you can add even other countries if you like. It's quite easy. This is the only manual operation you have to do. Okay, I'm going to now share some piece of code if you're interested in. Okay, you should see my PHP store now. And so basically what I did is, as I told you before, is to create a kind of distance provider. I called internally georeference provider pool, in which you can add even more than one. Now, as I told you before, you just have Google Map and offline provider, but you're free to extend it using even different one. And the cool part is that adding this new distance selection algorithm, we discovered that basically we were missing some extension point in the source selection algorithm, because as far as now, I don't know how involved you are in developing the source selection algorithm, but currently all the selection algorithm is based on one object that is called inventory request. That before this this feature was only handling the products. So basically, we were missing all the information about, for example, the shipping address. Of course, if I want to compute the distance between 2 points, I have to add even the destination. So I have to change it. So what I did is to add one new, let's say, entity in the MSI framework that is an inventory request from order builder. So basically I can create this inventory request starting from one order or from whatever I like. As far as now, I just created from order, but tomorrow you can even create from quote or from whatever. And depending on the algorithm, you can provide different information. So for example, I have one default builder for the priority and one other builder for distance that basically is adding the destination address. So I created a more extensible system for this source selection system. And yeah, I think it's almost here what I did. So thank you for your time, your attention.
Thanks, Riccardo. One question. So you showed downloading. Can you show us that database? Is it just pairs of like postcodes within the countries, or does it calculate across? So if I want to ship from Ukraine,
yeah, probably I forgot some part of my presentation actually, probably. So yeah, I'm going to share again my screen. Yeah, sometimes I'm. Okay, you should see my screen again. So what you have here is something like this. So every time you download this offline database, you have the postcode and, oh wait, you cannot see here. You also have latitude and longitude for each georeference you're going to download. And of course, it's less accurate than the Google Map because basically it's checking just the postcode, as you were saying before, and again, latitude and longitude, and we compute the distance across the Earth surface. So it's less accurate, of course, than Google Map that is computing the street distance. Another part I didn't show you, but it came in mind just now, is that when you define your source, as you probably noticed before, you can insert one latitude and one longitude here. And with this system I created, if you just clear them and you save your source, it's automatically filled using the distance provider you selected. So this is just another thing there is in this feature. Okay. Do you have other questions, Mark?
Yeah, so have you, a couple questions. Have you looked at the performance between the two, is the first one. And do you have it set up as any type of fallback? So if Google is not available, but that's set as the provider, that it would fall back to the offline?
So as far as now, of course, you have different performance depending on the provider you select, because of course, when you're using Google Map, you're going to call some external service, and the performance may depend on various factors. So it's of course the offline calculation is much faster. As far as now, I didn't provide any fallback mechanism, but I did by intention, because if, for example, my business is very sensitive to the distance calculation, I don't want to give wrong information. So what you can do now is to, so if you receive an error, so for example, Google Map is not available, you can just go to your admin panel and switch back to an offline calculation. But what I thought is that you should do this by intention and not automatically, because maybe your Google Map service is not working for other problems and you don't know which one is answering. I don't know if it does make sense. Of course, it was my choice, but it depends on what is your direction.
Right. No, I understand. I think we should think about it. I just think of a use case where a merchant is taking a large number of orders at a time, and they're dependent on that Google API. And if they lose that connection or it goes down for some reason, what they would do in that scenario. Of course, they would have to have, you know, the offline calculation. Even if we were to implement a fallback, it means that they have to have that configured correctly and ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's even easy to actually to create this kind of fallback. Mm-hmm. So I think we can implement.
We can listen like a timeout request from Google or any error response from Google API, and run the fallback as soon as we get this.
Yes, I think actually that timeout is, well, I think the most common cause of a Google Map problem may be the over usage of APIs.
Yes.
So yeah, so yes, that may be a problem. But from the answering again about the performance perspective, of course, every single call is cached. So if I try to compute 2 times the same distance across 2 different points, of course, is cached.
Great.
And where we keep this cache?
Well, actually not cached. I mean, talking about the Magento cache, I mean, there is a registry. So if you run one single command and you have to compute multiple times the same distance, of course, it is in a private variable in a class. I mean, this is not exactly cached, so it's
right. And it would seem to be unlikely that from the Google perspective, it would only be, in that sense, caching.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not
identical addresses, because it's not caching just the postcode distance.
Yes, but even caching from the real meaning of the term is not correct from the Google perspective, because as you know, it changes your route path depending on the time, depending on traffic. Yep. So basically, yes, it is not the right word, caching. It's in session cache, let's say.
Yeah. Do you use for the offline method just use like a standard geographical formula with the latitude and longitude to calculate the distance?
Yeah, exactly. So it's basically the distance between 2 points in the Earth surface. It's nothing more.
Yep. Great. Yeah, it's really exciting.
Just one question, Riccardo, can you please show what the external service you use to extract and download all this geocoding data?
Wait, I don't remember because I remember I was in Ukraine when I started this, and I have to check again, but it was one website you gave to me, so I don't remember. Let me check. I have to check again. I don't remember now. I have to check in my code. I'm sorry. So it is from guionems.org.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I'm not wrong, they provide their data just for free, and they are pretty okay to if you will use this data for any purposes, like even commercial ones.
As far as I know, it's quite, yeah.
Another question: Did you work on this algorithm, and are you going to incorporate this algorithm to the project you're going to launch in a very next weeks?
Not that one. It's another one. Actually, yeah, we have a project. We have 2.3 project with MSI starting, but the distance selection algorithm was not for that project. It's for another one. I'm under NDA, so I cannot tell what is the customer name. I'm sorry.
Okay. So, Mark, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't think so. Yep.
Yeah, everything looks very good. I hope that I can finish review during this weekend. I really hope that everything looks the same good in the code, from the code perspective as well, and we will try to accept this. So from Monday we will start making the testing of this pull request, and probably from the product perspective, it would be great if you will introduce some fallback from the online method to the offline, if the online is not reachable for some reasons, like timeout or exceeding the number of the API requests or something another one. But everything looks very good.
Talking about this fallback, what do you have in mind? Do you think to create some kind of priority across different distance-based algorithms, so I can do a fallback and another fallback, or just define one fallback method? So for example, offline is fallback for everything I could create. What is your idea?
I think it probably would be better if offline was the fallback for all other methods.
Okay, great.
But how what system should do if, for example, we'll make the fallback to the offline method for the country?
And we don't have the country.
Yes. If you don't have the country.
I mean, we have to return an error at that point. If the merchant hasn't configured it, you know, we have plenty of places in Magento that if you don't correctly set up the store, something might not work. And this is a required step if you want to use MSI and you want to use a distance-based algorithm, that you should configure this. It's relatively simple to configure, especially for merchants that sell in, you know, one or a small number of countries. It doesn't take long.
Now, the cool feature could be to automatically download that country, but it may take time. It may take time.
Actually, I don't think that this is correct behavior, because, for example, this is one of the reasons, for example, why we decided to eliminate the possibility of reindexation via the admin panel in Magento 2. So currently, you can just you should run the reindexation via the CLI command, but it's not possible via the
yes. I don't mean when you activate the source selection algorithm. What I had in mind actually was an asynchronous process checking all the orders you have and checking the shipment country and comparing to the ones you have. So a different service.
But
a kind of predictive country, I don't know how to name it. a relative country downloader.
I'm not sure, like, I'm not sure that we can do it asynchronously, because we can make the validation of the
Oh yeah,
initial criteria that we don't have because we already have the address, the shipping address, and we have all the addresses of all warehouses in the scope of this stock. So we can make a decision whether we are able to make a fallback or not. And as soon as we are not able, we can just throw some kind of exception.
Yeah, but it's even a bad idea, because if you have some automation, so maybe your order is automatically shipped, then you have an asynchronous process, you don't know exactly when it's run, so basically a mess. So bad idea.
Yeah, so my point was that we like merchant currently behave in a scope of the synchronous process running the source selection algorithm. So if you will run the asynchronous process, that would not be intuitive to this merchant, because he's supposed to get a result as soon as he chooses the particular source selection algorithm. So our UI is not asynchronous in this case. So probably the best way would be just to throw like clear exception, and say that we are not able to proceed with computation of the source selection algorithm for some reasons. For example, you exceeded the number of the API requests to Google, and the offline algorithm is also not an option because you don't have particular countries downloaded for this computation.
This should be already in place, actually, but you don't have this kind of error in the admin UI, but because of other reason, because it is there's another problem with an UI component. But if you run it, you have this kind of exception already in place.
Igor, is the reason we don't have re-indexing in the admin panel just from a length of time perspective, because we don't know how long, and it could take a very long time?
Yes, and also yes, because from one perspective, this can block some operations, and also we wanted to make a separation of concerns, and we wanted to like split some part of the application responsible for the maintenance the whole application. Like, for example, we want to separate the installation of Magento and make it as a separate application, and don't keep it as a part of Magento. The same as for a reindexation process. We want to move it out from the system and make it possible just to invalidate some index, like mark some indexes invalidated to be able to run it from the external application, from the external script.
Okay, just because I do get a lot of requests for it. And I wrote up a story for it one time on behalf of a partner, but I understand we would have to introduce a way to do it asynchronously, because it can run for a long time or block other things.
By the way, if needed, I can find the data like in our wiki, because that was discussed probably at the very beginning when we started to design Magento 2. So it is probably in some architectural discussion and the architectural documents prepared by the architectural consum, where all the pros and cons for this particular segregation is described.
Yeah, that'd be great if you want to send that through. I just have one more question on this. I don't know if we do this normally, or Lori, if you wanted to take a look at the titles, the value choices, etc., everything that Riccardo demonstrated, or would we do a regular review on UI elements like that?
It's a little loud here, but yes, I'll be doing that. I'll install his PR locally today.
Okay, great.
I just got a message in Slack from Sergey, who's also an active contributor to MSI. So Sergey pinged me and proposed to make a check at the time when the source added, and we specify the geolocation of this source. Or so we can check whether we have the data for this particular country based on the source geocoding. But so this is actually an option. So
This is, I think, 1/2 of the problem, because
yeah,
the other problem
exactly.
is
It's shipping address. Shipping address is in other part, and it could be from the different country.
Yeah, but I mean, you're getting some of them. It's more likely than not that they will ship from the same country as the warehouse to the customer. Not in every case, but you may get more than half.
So what's our final decision regarding the fallback?
It sounds to me like the decision was if other algorithm types are not available, it would fall back to offline.
So basically, we define one fallback, and that's it.
Yes.
It is full. Yeah. Okay. Great.
And we just have to put that in the documentation that as part of configuring MSI, you should configure this fallback if you want to use the distance algorithm.
By the way, from the engineering perspective, we can introduce a dedicated exception type for this like not resolved source selection algorithm for some reason.
Yeah, I think so. That should be already. I should have introduced. I don't remember actually, because I started this project a lot of time ago, and I was not so very constant in my work. But there should be some kind of exception like this one.
Because this is actually a really good example when the exception, when exceptions are a good mechanism, especially when we have the integration with the external services, and these services can not accept request, or so the exception is the right choice here. And this exception probably should be added as a part of the API. Okay. Are there any other questions, ideas, or?
We had one. Sorry, I just got a message from Lars, but I think it's relevant. We need to check the licensing on that data to make sure that we can use it. The data from geonames.org. So that's something that we can look into. It's a good point. If there becomes some obstacles there's other ways we could try to figure out how to get the database from another source or derive it.
Yeah, so when I was searching in the internet, there were quite a lot of different options and open geocoding database by the zip code.
Yep.
So if there are no any other questions, looks like this is all for today.
Okay.
And thank you very much, Riccardo. It was really interesting. Yep.
You're welcome.
This is really cool, because like just 2 days ago we made a release, and now we are already almost ready to release another feature. So this is pure feature-driven development, and we hope that we can make this brilliant feature part of multi-source inventory shortly. So it would be really cool.
Great.
And yeah, thank you, Riccardo.
You're very welcome.
And thank you very much, all the participants of today's meeting. There were quite a lot of guys looking at this presentation. So feel free to join us next week, and all the events, all the open presentation we're doing on other project as well. So thank you very much, guys, for your time. Feel free to share. Feel free to join other meetings, and if you have any questions, just drop us a message in Slack channel or personally to me, to Igor, to Riccardo, to Mark, and we will definitely help you to resolve some issue, to answer a question or whatever. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.